What is reality? Objective reality. Can there really be an objective reality? Meaning, a reality regardless of your perspective, that it is what it is indefinitely? Or do our experiences and our limited physiology put a cap on how much of the universe we have access to? Well, we do know that our senses limit what we can know about the universe. And this is why we create tools that enhance our senses and maybe one day will give us access to a realm that we never knew existed. Science aims to do this, and yet I fear that there will always be knowledge that is unknowable to man, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Just my opinion. Or maybe in the near future, with all the amazing new technology like quantum computers, AI, man will finally have the tools he needs to unravel all the mysteries of the universe and finally understand the mind of God. With that being said, let's explore the limits of reality. Part 1, Biology. As mentioned previously, we only can access the world around us through our senses: sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. Some would argue other senses, but let's go with what we know. Our vision is what man relies on the most to engage with the world. I mean, let's face it, without sight, man will be at so much of a disadvantage, I doubt we would have made it past the Stone Age. And with sight, think of all the magnificent things we have accomplished, and without sight, we may not have accomplished anything at all. The eye is an extraordinary organ and has evolved over millions of years to get to the complexity that it has today. And with all its resilience, the human eye still has its shortcomings. Humans can only see a small portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. We're blind to the ultraviolet and infrared light, which other animals and insects can detect. What bearing does this have for the way in which we perceive reality? Hypothetically speaking, there could be an organism that emits light exclusively in the ultraviolet spectrum. Humans will not be able to see these creatures directly. Our eyes are not sensitive to UV light. This organism can move around, interact with its environment, and perhaps even communicate with other UV emitting beings, all while remaining completely invisible to us. This is just one example of how there could be whole realities right in front of our faces that we just can't perceive. Another example is the micro world, to which we have limited access to because of our vision. Let's not forget how the brain and eye interact with one another. The brain just doesn't passively receive images, it interprets them, fills in gaps, adjusts colors based on context, and even alters perception based on expectations. All these things contribute to the way to which we perceive reality. Throw in the other limited senses and you can start to see, no pun intended, how handicapped we truly are and don't even realize it. Part 2, Language. Language does affect the way we perceive reality. How so, you ask? Well, let's take a look at this short video and we'll dive right into it.
I did not even know I was oppressed because dictator took that word out of our dictionary. George Orwell talks about in 1984, the importance of controlling the language. It's happening right now. They keep saying what you can say, what you cannot say. In North Korea, there's no word for depression because how can you be depressed in a socialist paradise? Therefore, simply, you don't even know the concept. So, how do you fight to be free if you don't know you're a slave? So they don't tell us the slavery that we are in. And I think that's what is so believed with North Koreans, because a lot of them don't even know that they are enslaved by dictator, and a lot of them think that Kims are gods, even till this day.
This is a prime example of how words control our perception of reality. We never stop to think that words and concepts are what actually creates our paradigms of reality, literally. The words in a group of people's lexicon dictates your worldview, or rather the way in which you can see the world. Think about it. You could be experiencing a certain emotion or feeling, and if you don't have the word in your vocabulary, you can't even express how you feel. Better yet, there could be things going on around you that you're not even aware of because the word or concept doesn't exist in your language. How powerful would that make someone if they hatch the plan but you can't even fathom what's going on because you don't even have the concept to describe it and don't even have an idea that this type of thing could even exist? So think of all the possible things that you don't know that you don't know. One way to conceptualize this is by looking at other languages and cultures. You will see words and concepts in one language that another language doesn't have. Some words can't be translated into other languages because it doesn't have an equivalent word in that language. So we settle with something similar and a piece of the meaning or even the whole concept gets lost in translation. The fact that different cultures have different words and concepts to describe the reality of the world around them lets you know that people are perceiving reality in different ways. So in theory, just by controlling one's language, you can dictate the way a person perceives reality. What about injecting words into a people's lexicon? Simply by having an idea, conceptualizing it, and creating a word, symbol for it, brings it into existence if people accept it. For instance, take government for example. Government is not something that you can find in nature. It's a complete creation of the mind, an abstraction, a physical representation that we have placed here on earth. The idea of government is represented by people acting and playing the roles of the concept, but really the concept doesn't exist. The way that language is framed can even affect your perception, and even the use of euphemisms can dictate the way you perceive things. These are just a few of the ways that language can affect your reality. Part 3. Experiences. Let's take a look at the mechanism of evolution. You may not agree with evolution as a theory in whole, but generally speaking, I think we all can agree to human adaptation. Humans today are a direct product of adaptation, meaning through our experiences of the pressures of the outside world, humans have adapted to the world and you get what you see today. So not only do your experiences in life socially mold the way you perceive, nature itself has forged you and caused you to perceive the way you do because of it. Whether it be through food, the food we eat can directly affect our brain chemistry, influencing our mood, energy levels, and cognitive functions. For instance, diets high in sugar and processed food can lead to fluctuations in blood sugar, resulting in mood swings, fatigue, and even depression, thereby altering our perception of daily experiences. The sunlight or lack of it. Sunlight is essential for vitamin D synthesis, which plays a role in the mood regulation and immune functions. Deficiencies can lead to fatigue, depression, and a weakened immune system, affecting how we feel and perceive our surroundings. Epigenetics. Gene expression and environment. Gene expression and environment. Our experiences, including stress, diet, and exposure to toxins, can influence gene expression without altering DNA sequence itself. This process, known as epigenetics, can affect how we perceive and react to our environment. For example, trauma experienced in one generation can lead to heightened stress responses in subsequent generations, affecting their perception of threats or safety. Transgenerational effects. Epigenetic changes can be passed down to future generations, meaning that experiences of ancestors can influence the behavior and perceptions of reality in their descendants. Propaganda. Media influence. Propaganda shapes public perception by controlling the narrative around specific issues, often using emotionally charged language or selective information. Propaganda shapes public perception. Propaganda shapes public perception by controlling the narrative around specific issues, often using emotionally charged language or selective information. For example, during wartime, propaganda can influence citizens' perceptions of the enemy and their own government's actions, potentially altering the sense of their reality. Social media algorithms. These algorithms curate the content we see. Reinforcing our existing beliefs and biases, creating echo chambers that can distort our perceptions of broader social realities. So these are some of the ways that our experiences can shape our perceptions of reality and at the same time shape us as human beings. So now that we have gone through the many ways on how reality can be affected, we are now back at the original question. Can there actually be objective reality, or can we ever only experience subjectivity or relativity?